You want to know how I automate my workflow and never stop moving forward? Let's talk about Linux. Hey, it's Jacob. Welcome to this new video. Today I want to talk about Linux and everything that involves, like, what are the reasons for me to have using that operating system? Why am I using Linux instead of like Mac or Windows, say? So this is the first thing that maybe you are concerned about. Like maybe you feel like you're constantly being interrupted by updates and you can't bypass them, because that's like, if you're on Windows, this is something that is happening all of the time, right? And like it's so frustrating because you don't have control over your own workflow. Sometimes you're going to be like on your computer and like working, and then you are like interrupted with like a pop-up and says update what you're doing, otherwise you're not going to be able to move forward. That is something that happens all of the time, right? And maybe sometimes you're like, you can't organize everything in your operating system. You feel like it's not customizable and it's super inefficient. And that is one of the problems with Windows and Mac. It's like it might be, sometimes it looks like it's easier to do things, but the problem is as soon as you want to customize it, then it's not that easy at all, right? Customize. It's not customizable enough is the problem, and it feels very inefficient as soon as you want to get started doing things that are a little bit more sophisticated for your needs. It's more sophisticated, the things that you're doing, but it simplifies your actual workflow, and that's the thing that is a problem for other platforms, right? And so here is the thing. For me, the number one thing is why is Linux, and specifically I use Ubuntu, like why is it considered more robust for workflow enhancement? And this is because you have full control over your workflow. So let me explain what I mean by that. The control is basically because, like, for example, if we're just talking about updates, that's very common for people that are using Linux or Ubuntu or whatever the thing is, whatever the distribution you're using is. This is common to have like a very old one and keep using that specific version. The reason is Ubuntu is not going to, or Linux is not going to push you into like doing more and more and more updates, and then there are things that are not compatible with what you did, and then you need to rework on like the software that you had and change maybe your tools and create new tools and blah blah blah, and then it goes on and on and on, right? The problem is that's kind of like the loop that is happening is you work on a software, you're using a tool, and then the problem, it works really well, and you keep building on it and you keep building on it, and then the problem, at some point you get an update here. And the update, because you don't have full control over what's happening, then you need, the update is making it not compatible anymore with the software that you had, or you need to like go back to the software to make it compatible. You need to work somehow on changing the tools. And like you could say, well, that's fine. Like I'm willing to do that. But the problem is you're losing your leverage. That's the number one problem. Leverage is the term. If you are going to work on your own workflow, and if you're going to use tools that are like that are going to make your workflow a lot faster, the leverage is the number one word. Because if you can't keep building on things without like all of the time needing to step backward, then it's not going to matter how fast you move forward, because you're always going to have like this thing that is pushing you back again and again and again. You do not have control over your operating system. So that's the number one thing. It's because it's super reliable and you can keep using the same version that actually work, right? Because every single time you have a new update, that is also something that happens where the new update is actually not that great because it's new. So by definition, there is going to be a few troubleshooting issues, and so because it's new, you need new updates as well to fix the new features of the new update. But guess what? Like if you're doing something that is well established and your workflow is something that you know what is going to happen, then you don't need necessarily new features. This is not something that is good to always have new things coming in when you're doing something that you want to build on. Well, new features are not necessarily the best thing. New features are things that you add proactively, not things that happen to you. And so that's one of the points about like Linux, right? Now, let me keep going with why I'm using Linux. It's basically because all of the best tools for automations or for like AI workflow enhancement, they're readily available on that platform. So, for example, Python is extremely simple to set up for this. On Linux, it's just basically you have a terminal and then you can use directly the terminal, right? Like on Windows, it's just really bad. On Mac, it's not ideal. It kind of works, but like it's not optimized for that. This Linux is optimized for this, right? So that's one of the things. Aliases, right? So an alias is just something that you define and that is going to do whatever the thing is you want it to do. So it can be like an acronym, something that is going to replace a word by another word or something like that. It can be like running a script. So for example, a Python script, if you're using Python, it's going to be able to like just run it by just with an alias. An alias is just like whatever the thing is you're defining. It can be like 2 letters. So can you imagine like the difference of streamlining that can happen when you actually can use those types of tools versus someone that is just doing everything by hand? So that's one of the things that you can do as well. Keyboard shortcuts. So keyboard shortcuts. So these ones are really, really good, because they are like, again, this is kind of similar to alias, but it's even it's even faster, right? Because if you're doing like even small things that you're repeating every single time, then having it on a single, by just pressing a single key, this is going to change everything, because it's going to like streamline your processes to a point where no one can compete with that. What you can do is you have like a keyboard shortcut, and then you hook that up to a large language model like ChatGPT or whatever, and then you have a full script that is going to do like a lot of different things for your specific workflow, right? So, and by just pushing a button, that's something that you can set up. So that's just to show you and to explain like how customizable Linux is, and those are some of the reasons why like I think is super. I use it, right? That's one of the reasons why I use it. Another thing again is using like scheduler. Like they're very, very robust scheduler for Linux. So a scheduler, what does that mean? It means like, well, there are scripts, there are aliases, there are keyboard shortcuts, there are acronyms, there are a lot of things that are going to help you like basically execute, for example, scripts, or like open a window or open a folder or do whatever the thing that you want it to be. That matters to your own workflow. Instead of doing any of that, what you can do is you schedule it for like every day or every Monday or once a month or once a year or whatever the period is, and then it's gonna execute every single time, right? And let me give you an example. Like, let's say you're producing something based on an input, like for example, content based on a list of things that you have predefined, and you want this report to be randomly generated based on a scheduler every single day. This is something you can set up extremely easily. Like it can be done in less than a day. That's actually I've done something like that in less than a day. So this is really efficient in that way. And this is something that I'm sure you can do with other platform, other operating systems, but like it's not optimized for that. That's the point, right? So Ubuntu and Linux are optimized for like actually enhancing your workflow to a point that no one can compete with you. So, and again, like just something like this is a side note, but you don't necessarily need to get a like to throw away your existing operating system. Instead, you can have like use an older laptop, a different one, and you don't change your setup, and you gradually use those tools only for the things that are really well that works really well for this. And then for everything else, you use your current laptop, and then gradually you're going to see that you're going to move more and more towards Linux, because it tends to make things a lot easier over time, right? There is a little bit of a learning curve at first. That's why if you keep your old laptop, the laptop that you're using, and you're using a different one for Linux, then there is all of those problems are going to be solved by themselves, and you're going to be able to do that very like seamlessly, basically, right? So yeah, this is that plus like the updates. Like this is really something that really changed everything in terms of like workflow enhancement, because you need to understand that workflow. The very first principle of workflow enhancement is reliability. Reliability is the number one problem. Reliability. Ability, right? This is the number one thing that matters when you want to move forward, because you can't move faster if things are not reliable. You need to be reliable first and then keep building on things. And if it's not reliable, or if you don't have full control, then it's not going to work. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you want to be part of my contacts, click on the link in the description. And if I want to share something with you, I'll send you an email. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.